Podcasting worldwide from Vancouver, Canada. Welcome back to the Personal Process Podcast. The show that takes you through the growth, hardship, self-discovery, lessons, and stories of individuals who achieved success in their own personal path. Trust the process.
Boom. We are back, and today we are very honored to have my friend Joseph. Joseph is a recent SFU graduate, and speaking of being a recent graduate, he's actually a graduate student right now who has recently submitted his graduate thesis, which I've only submitted my honors thesis, but I know how much of a relief it is to finish that submission. He still has his defense left, and we're wishing him luck on all fronts with that. And once that is finished, he will be officially known as my good friend, Master Joseph. So maybe we'll have him back on another episode for that one. But we're talking with Joseph, and me and Joseph have had a long friendship, and we usually talk about life, and we have very deep philosophical thoughts. So I was talking to Joseph. I'm just like, hey, we usually have these deep chats. Why not put it on a podcast where some other people can enjoy it? And Joseph, like the amazing individual he is, said yes. So today we're talking about COVID-19, the impacts it had on us, how we can get out of it, how we can survive, and we're going to try to keep it higher level. And with that said, Joseph, is there anything that I missed? Is there any topic that you think that we could hit into that I didn't talk about yet?
I mean, you got it all. I think I'm good. We can go.
We can go. So let's go into this, man. Let's throw it back to March 2020. Ooh, man, that almost seems like yesterday, but that was. Let me see. March is over now, man. Yeah. So we're recording this on April 3rd, and it's kind of crazy because March just flew away. Well, last year, I mean, and this year too. But what was the ramifications of March and how everything was conducted? What's your thoughts on that? We hear COVID, but what are you thinking?
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to start off by saying thank you for the invitation to your podcast. I've listened to a couple of episodes, and I think I really like the stories. I like the angle in which they're framed.
Appreciate that.
March 2020. What a year it was, right? A lot transpired. I think a lot of people are trying to heal from that. A lot of people are trying to still kind of reflect on what happened. And it's not that it actually changed that much, because we're still in kind of the phases of the pandemic, right? In my personal reflection, I think a lot happened and a lot is still to happen. But I feel like there's some hope on the horizon.
Some hope on the horizon.
And I feel like a lot of people are starting to feel like there's some hope given the vaccine now. But I also want to say that, I don't think there's going to be a lot of change from what happened in 2020, because I feel like our trajectory as a human species is still the same. We're still making the same mistakes. We are still bogged down by the same systems that kind of failed us in 2020.
Huge
and when
point.
I talk about systems, I mean when you talk about systems, any system, when the system scientists will tell you that a good system has to be viable. And what do I mean by viable?
Man, you're doing my part for me.
Sorry, I should have let you know.
No, not at all. So what do you mean by viable?
But viable, I mean any system should be able to withhold any kind of pressure, right?
Right.
And what we saw in 2020, our systems crashed before our eyes. Things that we thought were permanent, things that we thought, we talk about our health system, our economic system, our education system, any system that we have relied on that matter failed us, and it failed us because we have not evaluated these systems on the go. And the COVID pandemic has been a test of, has given us a test. And how we move forward is going to really, really be dependent on the lessons we take from last year, this year, and moving forward. I think we should learn from that, what happened. And the major lesson for me as a public health a student, as a student of health sciences, I think that we need to center public health, bring it to the center of all the other systems, because at the end of the day, health is the ultimate goal of any living system, right? So we ought to bring health as at the center. So I should stop there, but I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah,
No.
March 2020, yeah.
For sure. So let me have two follow-ups on that question. You mentioned that COVID was a test for, kind of humanity at large. And I was wondering on what grade you would give to this, because, Joseph's actually currently working and being a TA. So two separate jobs alongside his research. So we make the joke that the guy's fueled on some sort of energy that no one else has access to, because this guy is a champion. He's tanking through all of this, study, work, all that kind of good stuff. So I think he has a decent amount of accreditation to adequately test for this, in my opinion, at least. And the follow-up question is, you're also mentioning after the test for humanity that the health is at large. So I wonder if you could kind of explain why that is, but we'll get back to that after your amazing grading of COVID-19's report.
What grade?
What grade?
If I understand the question, you mean what grade I would give to how we perform.
And also the comments, because that's key.
And the comments, I see.
Because you're a good TA, right? You don't just slap on an F and just leave them there. You let them know why they got an F or how they can improve from a C to a B. So being that good TA, tell me your thoughts. What are you thinking?
That's true. A lot of students, when you just give a grade, they are mad. They want to know why you gave them that grade. Well, I think I feel like everyone is accredited now to grade our social systems on how we really performed. And of course, systems are not made out of vacuum; they're made out of people. We make these systems, so I shouldn't even, as an individual, be grading. I think everyone has a right to grade how we perform. But to answer the question, I think, well, I would say we tried.
We tried. We got the effort marks, participation check.
Our systems tried, because at least we're still here.
We're still here.
But I also send out my heartfelt condolences to all those who lost their loved ones.
Absolutely.
Whilst you and I might still be here, but a lot of people have lost loved ones. I know close friends who have lost their parents. So I mean, as much as we want to keep it light, it's also very sad that
it's very true.
The pandemic turned out the way it did. And the comment that I would give to that is that the average grade that I give is that, yes, our systems tried, we're still here, we're still existing. But as I tell students, your grade is an indicator of what you did and where you're going.
So, what do you mean by that?
So your grade is kind of what you're capable of and how you performed, your current performance, and what you're also capable of. That's how I grade. That's how I grade my students. What I see that you're capable of as a student and how you performed. And I think the average grade that we have as a human race today on our performance with the virus is really going to be determined by the lessons we learn, again, from the pandemic. And as our leaders, as individuals, as students, what we take from this pandemic should decide how we move forward, what kind of systems we build in the future. And I'm very, as you can tell, I've mentioned systems probably like 6 times now. But when I mention systems, is that I mean to bring into focus that the importance of public interventions rather than individual interventions. Because when we look at some of these things and we focus on the individual, and that's what systems really do. They focus on the whole, right? So I think we really need to refocus again on health. How we design our economic systems, how we design our distributive systems, our justice systems, our education systems. Are they chasing health? Are they centered around health? Are they promoting health? And when I talk about health, not just the absence of disease per se, but I'm talking about, because, I mean, yes, we are diseased by the virus,
Sure.
but having homeless people is a disease. It is an indicator of a disease. It's a symptom of something failing within us.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was just going to clarify on that statement. So by having a system where homeless individuals are there and in great numbers, it's an indication showing that, at least, we're in Vancouver, and there's a very famous street on East Hastings where a lot of these individuals congregate for a sense of community. But if I'm understanding correctly, this is a sign that what we're currently doing, the values we have in this society, is at fault, and we really need to do something to change that. Is that correct?
Exactly. And that's how we got here with the pandemic. I say that because our systems have been designed, unfortunately, to have not been designed to support the least amongst us. The ones at risk, the ones at risk of being homeless, the ones at risk of being poor, the ones at risk of getting sick. So how we move forward, and I'll emphasize this, how we move forward as a human race has to really focus on how we bring back the ideals of health. And by health, I mean everyone.
Right.
As a human race, if we had aliens come, what grade would they give to us about how we have treated the least amongst us? Those are not able to make it. So, and COVID-19 kind of brought out all that to the surface, that we still have a lot of work to do. I mean, I'm only a student, I only graduated, but I'm speaking as a student, and I'm speaking as someone passionate about social justice and impact. So I think that when you ask me where we were and where we are now, I think that there's a lot that we still hasn't been changed, because we're still going back to the poor systems of distributing food that our food today is distributed. And it's so sad that technology enables us to produce so much food,
Right.
Systems that help us distribute this food are very poor, that those who need the food the most don't get it.
That's an interesting point you made. I think I'm not sure if this law has been amended or changed, but I remember reading in the papers that food that is past its best before date actually has to be thrown out. And I remember the thing that I heard from after is what really shocked me, because past this expiration date, I mean, yeah, you could probably eat it. The chances of it actually making you sick, I don't know much about it. I would think that it's slim, but again, for everyone listening, please do your own research and don't just go on this advice. But the thing that really bothered me is they would actually physically lock up some of these food dumps that were best past their expiration date. And I mean, this is a very big problem for me. And I would assume that the reason for this is most likely for an economic growth. I'm not sure if that would mean that some people may say like, oh, if I throw this away, maybe, or if I don't buy this, maybe someone else will benefit from it if it wasn't locked up. But if it is locked up, then people are saying, okay, if I don't buy as much as I can, it's just going to go to waste and I'm going to feel bad. So maybe that's an incentive for the consumer to buy more. But it really broke my heart, Joseph, because, like we were mentioning earlier, when you were mentioning that a society is judged on how many individuals it can keep off poverty, how many it can keep in homes rather than being homeless. And just from this one aspect of food, how many individuals would be fed?
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting way that we've kind of gone about. And I think we're talking off air about this, I think a couple months ago, and I'm probably going to butcher a little bit of this. So feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that society is kind of just going into what fits the best monetary policy, what makes us the most money. And I think that comes at the sacrifice at health.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that?
I mean, if you think of, and again, I'm going to help with connecting this back to COVID-19.
Please.
When we chase monetary value instead of health, of course, monetary means help us achieve that health. And from my understanding, all these means were made for us to were designed as a means to one. And in the end, I hope that was survival or health of individuals. But when you turn these means into the end themselves, then I think we've lost something. And that's why the pandemic hit the way it did. Because when you have, let's say, people working and they don't even have health insurance, we're happy. I mean, we are blessed to live in Canada, you and I, that we have health insurance. But a lot of people still have cost-related barriers to accessing care. Where I come from, a lot of, if a mother has a sick child, the first question they're going to ask is, do you have the money to pay for the bills or treatment or care needed? So I think we really need to reevaluate this, how we are using our monetary systems to achieve the ultimate goal of health or survival. And the way I will relate it to COVID-19 is that, when these big conglomerates or big businesses send off, let's say, people who are really making a very small amount, or maybe they're producing food on a farmland that is subsistence to feed their homes, and maybe sell the rest, the surplus to make a bit more money. When these big businesses send out these farmers off their lands to build big farms or to build big factories, these people are going to have no option but to encroach on the natural environment, right? They're going to go and maybe cut down more trees to have space to farm, to feed their families. And yet, these big, let's say, corporations that are bringing up all these factories are going to sell this food, are going to produce a lot of food in abundance, but then attach a monetary value that these local farmers cannot even compete or even buy the food, right? So what happens is that then people start to encroach on the natural environment. They look for other sources of food. They look for, and all these things that have led us here, and climate change, the degradation of our natural environment and all this. So, yeah.
It's a very interesting point, because even kind of relating that analogy to even the consumerism, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of going into what's the cheapest, what's the easiest to get, and what do I have to have less stress over, rather than looking at the sustainability cost of it. I mean, I was going to give the Amazon example, and I think I'll go that after. But I mean, let's talk about Uber and taxis, right? What's cheaper?
Mm-hmm.
Uber. And, you press a button, a car comes over to you, and this is all speculation on my end, but my thoughts is, if I want to be a business leader and I have a bunch of capital and I want to go into an industry where there's already a monopoly, where people trust, giving them a cheaper ride is a great way to acquire a customer. And after they've gone on several rides, they're like, okay, this is fine. This is easy. There's no other problems. And, I can even get tracked to where I want to go. But what happens when that cheapness causes that other industry to die?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, I don't think those prices are still going to stay low. If anything, it might actually go higher, because I was reading somewhere that for an average Uber ride, the company actually loses a little bit of money,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
right now it's kind of like promotion season. It's kind of like their own advertising.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, in farming, what happens next? The food prices go up, the quality goes down. We have all of these sustainability issues. We have greenhouse gases going, and I mean, I think even talking about the factories that you were talking about, where the big companies come in and take over the small farms. Like, I mean, how many times did we hear that COVID-19 even passed through those factories and individuals weren't allowed to get time off, right? And, that's kind of a little bit of a controversial subject, because obviously there needs to be food that's made, but there needs to be better conditions. And again, this comes back to the point you're mentioning, Joseph. It's valuing humans over economy.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, I think, that's such a big issue. But
Mm-hmm.
let's talk real, Joseph. How do we actually get past this notion, rather than saying it's good, but actually implementing it? Because I almost want to guarantee, and I'm not, that the majority of individuals in the business realm, especially the CEOs of this high caliber, would just be like, why would I do that? Why should I care? Right?
Well, they should care. And COVID, I think, has taught us that. I think
Tell me.
it has taught us that, and as societies are going to be as healthy as the least among, we're all going to be healthy and safe as the least amongst us. However, the homeless people are, whatever health they have right now is what we're gonna, as a society, end up with. So no one is really safe. Let's say even the billionaires, or you have so much money, but let's say when the hospitals are capped, your money ain't going to save you. Your money's going to be useless if hospitals are capped and you can't even buy your health. We saw that with COVID-19.
Yeah.
So I think that we all have to open our eyes and realize that the only way we are going to survive the next virus or the next whatever it's going to be is going to be dependent on how much focus we give to the least amongst us. And I'll emphasize that, because and that's the fun fact about globalization, is that we can move around faster than we used to, right? So whatever is happening in Uganda, or whatever is happening in a little village in India or wherever in the world, has a global impact. So whatever maybe they are protected and they have high walls, is a gone fact, because we live unless you're going to go to Mars. Yeah. Unless you're going to go to Mars. But as long as we are on the same planet, we are all susceptible to the same viruses, the same issues, and there's no way out. So you ask, how do we move forward? In my little brain, I'm only a young guy, so I shouldn't flex too much. But from the little I know, I think there's a better way of moving forward, and we just have to find that middle ground. Of course, we still need efficient ways of producing food, getting people, and of course there are arguments between the socialists and the capitalists. But I think that's not the important question to ask. The important question is, again, what is the health system? What is the most healthy system?
Right.
That's the big question to ask. And I think that answers whether it's socialists or capitalists. I think what is going to bring us together is to ask that question, no longer what is efficient, but what is most healthy. Healthy in terms of production, healthy in terms of distribution, healthy in terms of work, the work environment,
stability, right?
And stability.
And I mentioned that to say this. I think I was watching documentary on just the food production in the United States, and with all these big companies coming in to take over a lot of farms and have workers working lines and just efficiency. What ends up happening is if there's one problem, all of them get wrecked and the whole system comes to a halt. And you're getting efficiency, you're getting the most output you can per time, but that's the cost of stability. And would you rather have a little bit less efficiency if you don't need to hit higher, but have that stability, that grounding where one factor won't completely deteriorate everything? And I mean, the same thing kind of happened with COVID, right? COVID came in and, I'm not trying to say that everything was focused on efficiency, but I think there was some sort of lack of stability that we had in our system that really caused an issue. And Joseph, I kind of want to bring it back here because we didn't actually talk about the report card grade you're going to give. And you did mention that we have to wait to see what happens. So I want you to talk about the report card grade you'd give with the comments, specifically from the time we started COVID till today. So 1 year away. And you mentioned you want what happened, the response, and how we learned from it. So I think that gives a decent amount of time for you to come up with your comments and grades. So what would you say to that, sir?
Well, I'll start. I don't like tackling things straightforward because it that way is still kind of we address the symptoms instead of the iceberg, right? But I'll bring in the question of externalities here, right?
Okay.
The question of externalities. I promise I'm going to answer the question before we end this podcast.
Sure.
But the issue of externalities, I think, what we now need to look at, whether you're in business or social impact, non-government work or whatever it is, whatever externality it is, we need to measure it in terms of the effect of this externality on public health. Companies right now or businesses have a way of kind of reducing the cost of production. But when it decrease the internal cost of production, what does it do? The other costs are going to be on the environment or the surrounding, what economists call externalities. Whatever costs that you don't take in are going to be costs on the other, or the people around.
Right.
The costs that you don't cover as a business. So we have to look at what is the impact of these externalities on health. And again, if I try to answer your question, I don't think we've still done well because these externalities are still wide. And externalities are not just in terms of emissions. Externalities are in terms of how many people are you pushing off to create a risk population for homelessness, for poor health, for to be impacted maybe by poverty or malnutrition, right?
Right.
These are all externalities, social externalities, right?
Sure.
So we need to start to refocus are again on whether it's business, whether it's government, or whether it's distribution of redistribution of wealth. Is it centered around health? And we now need to come up with new parameters of what we mean by health. And again, we've learned that COVID has taught us at least that our health has been so much medical or public health has been so much reliant on epidemiology. But now we need to move beyond that and look at health in the justice system. Not just illness, not just disease, but are people having healthy working conditions?
Right.
Is our food distribution mechanisms, are they healthy for the natural environment and for us as individuals? So when you ask me how we've done how we've done and how we're doing compared to last year, I would say we're still on average because there's so many people that are lacking right now. So many people who don't know where their next meal is going to come from because businesses have been closed. Mm-hmm. And yes, governments have tried to respond with the short-term handouts of disbursements, maybe $2,000 here, $1,500. But what of the countries that don't have these mechanisms to redistribute money? Right.
Absolutely.
New things are going to come up in those, because when people are pushed to the brim, or when circumstances push people, when survival is called into question, people turn to different, out of ways to survive.
Absolutely.
And some of those things may not be healthy.
Absolutely. And I just thought about this cool analogy that I think kind of fits, because, it's oftentimes that, the people who are more wealthy, more privileged, they don't get affected nearly as much as those in the extremities. And similarly, so physiologically, when our bodies are thrown into water, what's the first place to lose blood flow? Our extremities, right? Where does the blood keep pumping? Near our core, near the center. And that's kind of an analogy for individuals. And when we're pushed to the edge where we have to solidify our being, all the blood, and in this time it can be thought, money, all of it just goes and tries to keep everything afloat, because if not, everything would explode. And what that does is the people that are on the extremities of side, whether they're homeless, whether their mental health is just at a place that can't handle things anymore, or X, Y, or Z, they're the ones that kind of get tossed. Mm-hmm. And it's almost not even in their control anymore, because like, for example, COVID happened in March 2020. How many people lost their jobs? How many people weren't able to get a job? Mm-hmm. How many people just graduated university, were looking for work, but now they're competing with someone with 20 years of experience and 20 years worth of making networks with individuals? And these are the individuals that are pushed to the brink, mm-hmm. And it's very difficult. And I do agree with you. Let's try to focus in on Canada, because we only have an hour with you. And although I'd like to talk to you all day, I think we're both pretty busy individuals. So let's focus on Canada. And I want to specifically talk to you, Joseph, about Canada's response to COVID-19, because initially I think they started off really well, in my opinion, minus the length it took to, ban air travel. But with the fact that, the government was mentioning that, hey, we're going to give you some money so you guys can, not have to deal with that financial pressure, and giving that constant messaging on the television, I think the communication aspect was really good. But what are your thoughts? Tell me about the start of the pandemic, because I think we got onto your messaging with regards to, focusing on health as a society. And I think we covered that pretty well. If not, let's finish this statement. We can kind of roll back to it after.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure if I would be even the best to grade Canada, because I'm a benefit.
That's okay. That's okay. We're just two guys having a chat.
Exactly. But I think compared to other countries, they did well in the start. But again, I think there is more need now to realize that COVID-19 is not going to be the end of it all. There's still the overdose crisis in Canada. There's still a lot of people battling mental health. And COVID-19 just exacerbated all these conditions that were there before. In BC, at least, we know that more people died in the month of January to March due to the overdose crisis.
Right.
So yes, they've done well in terms of supporting the majority of us to continue surviving. But how are the least amongst us doing in Canada? The Indigenous people, the marginalized communities doing? Of course, and it hurts a lot of these marginalized communities because there is now sudden disbursement of money because those of us who run or maybe help the economy run are now affected. But there are people who have been affected even before COVID, right? So, but again, I know I'm I'm dodging the question, but I think in terms of distribution of the money to support people, maybe to get the economic machine running, they've done well, and that's the economic thing to do.
Right.
But we should not stop there.
For sure.
All these public health measures should not end there. In health sciences, there are two ways you can get around an issue or such as COVID-19. There are preventative measures and there are treatment methods or harm reduction methods.
Right.
So COVID-19 did create harm on our social systems, on individuals. So the government, I suppose, is trying to limit that harm, reduce the harm on individuals and communities.
For sure.
But if the government of Canada there focuses on harm reduction and not preventative measures, then we are going to see yet another virus.
Absolutely. And hopefully not, because we're not done with this one. And I don't know about you, Joseph, but I've had enough COVID-19 daily life stories and all that kind of stuff to fill me for the rest of my whole career going forward. But let's keep talking about this specific aspect of what Canada should have done, because I think a lot of individuals agree that the financial backing that Canada gave, and even me, like I mentioned, is that they did a tremendous job. But I think there were some things that were a little bit concerning. I mean, even in the airports, like, why was there such a delay to, just even check for symptoms for individuals? And, you hear in the news that these individuals got the news report from their own intelligence, from the Canadian, I don't know if it's called the Canadian Intelligence, but agency, or if it's something else, because that sounds like CIA. So I'm not sure about that, but some sort of Canadian Army intelligence that, there's some sort of virus brewing, and it wasn't acted upon, and it wasn't really even taken seriously. Even if the news is talking about it, it's like, okay, they kind of check, or they don't even mention it at the airport sometimes. And it's like, what's going on with that? And one of the things that was really interesting for me is we've been in this whole, like pseudo lockdown, meaning we're locked down one day, not locked down the next day, and lockdown in a couple days. And this causes a bunch of effects, like some individuals, their jobs are going to be canceled. Some individuals are going to not have the opportunity to go to promotions. Some individuals are going to lose their business, and not even talking about the morbidity sense and mental health, physical health, XYZ. And I'm just wondering if they should have just done and this is going to sound very hardcore. So this is a little bit extreme, and I'm preempting that. But wouldn't you, and this is just two individuals talking, I don't consider myself an expert, this is just a thought that I'm having while stroking my beard to seem intelligent, but wouldn't you think that if we had a 3-week shutdown with airplanes shut down internationally, just keeping national flights, with rations delivered to your door, where while individuals had to stay in their homes for 3 weeks, and granted, there are disparities. Some individuals would not have as much room as other individuals, but wouldn't that be a better trade to compare it to what we're seeing now? Because, like I mentioned, the morbidity risks, the financial risks, and some support has been given from the Canadian government to the individuals. And again, amazing job on that front. But the duration of that support has now gone for a year. And, now there is, I think, I'm not sure if I mentioned it with you earlier, but there was a podcast with the previous Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, and he was mentioning that, all of this spending and all of this cost, not only just on the financial distribution, but also for vaccine, COVID vaccine research and all the things that go on with that. The costs are high, and it's worrying because now there is an impeding financial bubble, and what happens there? And if that pops, all of this gets exacerbated. So, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that they should have gone with the more, I guess, stricter lockdown that would have lasted less time, or sorry, way less time than a year, but, a little bit harder? Or what other things do you think they should have done?
Well, I think COVID-19 has politicians running around with like chicken without heads. Because, I mean, I would even want to be that guy to make such decisions, because trust me, this thing has a lot of puzzles, a lot of factors.
Sure.
And the COVID equation has, if I'm to mention just a few, you have to take into consideration that there's still going to be a system to run after COVID-19, right? How do we still sustain this economic machine without, if this thing completely shuts down, then we're screwed. 2, how do we keep our hospitals from overfilling? Because if they overfill, then we're now talking about a lot of people dying.
And not just from COVID, right? It's because if the space is taken,
Exactly.
You can't move anyone else in, especially if it's contagious.
Exactly. 3, businesses. Right now, we know you and I have walked around Hastings.
So sad.
See how many businesses have closed down.
Yeah.
To how long? Maybe a year and a half of COVID. So I can imagine, and this is where the question of systems comes in again. That when you focus in one angle of public health, something else is going to suffer. Of course, I was talking about bringing health to the center, but that doesn't mean that you cut off all the other tentacles.
Sure.
That feed into health. These tentacles still have to be there, but are they moving towards health? The economic tentacle, the education tentacle, the justice tentacle, are they still moving toward health? But all these, if you cut off all these tentacles, then you're only left with people surviving.
It's an interesting point. So it seems that you're talking about kind of life, not only in a holistic sense, but you're talking about every single facet of life acting as a uniform organism, working in the same direction, going through. And that's an interesting aspect, because I think that's the way that it should be, because it seems like there are very separate facets, silos of an individual's life, from their economics to their, hobbies, to what they enjoy, to X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So when you ask that question, should they have shut down? To be very honest, I don't even know how to answer that, because we saw what the 3-week shutdown did. And businesses could not survive. And
let me cut you off right there. Sorry about that. Man, that's so Canadian.
No.
But, like with the 3-week shutdown that's happened before and all that, it's been a shutdown where individuals can still go out, but, it's like stay at home as much as possible.
Mm.
To clarify the position that I was aiming for, I'm saying like harsh shutdowns where you have to stay in your home. Okay. Like no one can go out for groceries, even. Groceries will be delivered to you via rations. And the reason for this is because, even in the lockdowns that we have, people still go out to grocery stores. People still go out to see their friends. And, it's contagious. And, some people take it more seriously than others. And what ends up happening is it spreads. And the reason why COVID, in my opinion, is so darn deadly, it's kind of like a ticking time bomb. It's not like you get it and then you get it again. It's like, I've given it to you. I've put it into your pocket. You don't hear the ticking, but then one day, boom, you realize you have it, you spread it, and everyone you've come in contact with has that too. And it's like, boom, it's gone. And you can't do anything about that. And, that's what I was mentioning for the harsh shutdown, because it would have been a lot harder on individuals during that confined period of time. But after that, like, we would eradicate the majority of the virus. The airplanes would be going solely domestically. So we could kind of have a nation kind of like Australia. We'd still have income from that. But right now it's, airplanes I'm pretty sure haven't shut down, at least for a significant amount of time. And air travel, to my knowledge, which may be wrong, is still coming in. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on that? I just wanted to clarify that to make sure. Because with the small businesses, right? Like, they're having the shutdowns left, right, and center. They've had like 5 sets of shutdowns, right? Whereas they could have one strong shutdown, but then have a whole bunch of individuals coming in and visiting them.
The thing with COVID, man, is it's really strange because
there is no right answer, but like it's just for conversation, sparking some dialogue, some thoughts,
Exactly. Yeah. I'm thinking of even pilots, right?
Pilots, yeah.
Pilots. They have families.
They do.
So, hey, man. I mean, I think a shutdown, a 3-week shutdown would have helped kind of contain that.
A prevention method we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Contain this virus, but such that we limit how many people are exposed to it. But it's a country, man.
It is a country.
And I think of even the food, because all these guys traveling, I'm hoping that it's just essential travel. But all these guys traveling, maybe people making businesses about how are we getting these shipments from point A to point B?
Let's assume like the logistical stuff is covered though, like just for the average individual. So like everything you need for food, water, oil, for the resource sector is covered. But anything that's non-essential that you can go without for these 3 weeks, completely shut down.
Right.
And
I think that would have honestly helped, because the pandemic is still, the virus is still mutating. They're new.
It's getting worse.
And it's getting worse. Basically we just got a whole 3-week shutdown now. So, and we cannot keep doing shutdowns. We cannot keep.
We can't.
We can't. Many shutdowns, because life has to move on. But so that's a big question, Paham, that I think we really need to reevaluate. As I started off the podcast by saying that I think the new focus now should be reevaluation of our systems. Because, man, if we don't figure this thing out, we're going to keep... Because shutdowns, again, you shut down when you are unable to figure out what to do. It's also a technique that you're like, let's just keep them at home because we don't know what to do. Right?
Absolutely.
It's not just maybe preventing the virus, but we have to figure out if we can, if somehow life can be paused a minute, that we can kind of design a quick new system to put in place, then then we all good. We can reopen, but people have to eat. People have
Yep.
to. People are still having other diseases other than COVID-19, and
Yep.
mark you, and hospitals have suffered the most because
Absolutely.
all the meds are gone. A lot of, I mean, even blood donation drives. No one is donating blood.
That's true.
So, man, I think of this pandemic as definitely. But I'll say this before we close, that at an individual level, we have to hold on to our hopes. We have to hold on to each other. We cannot let this fall kind of break us. We have to continue reaching out to one another. We have to figure out how to maintain that kindle of hope that you and I have. Because if we give up as individuals on this hope, then everyone is going to shut down their door. And as you mentioned this weekend when we were, or 2 days ago when we met, everyone you call, hey man, COVID, or I don't want to, I don't want to talk. I'm really busy, or I'd rather not right now. So we need
even
to
for the phone calls and all that. Yeah.
we need to be resilient, because the human spirit is resilient. As individuals, we have to hold on to one another, to reach out, because as COVID-19 is happening, mental health is also happening, because
Definitely.
and the reason mental health happens is when we start to overshadow our thoughts with darkness rather than hope. So
Absolutely.
I just have to put that out there, that we need to there's still light at the end of the tunnel. So we can hold on to that. But again, as leaders in government, or if you're a leader anywhere else, people are counting on you. But again, our leaders also need us.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, if you look at Bonnie Henry now, she looks tired.
Shout out to Bonnie. She's been doing a great job.
So,
Just a couple points I wanted to mention before we go on to our closing. But, with regards to the mental health issues that we were mentioning and the hardship and all the, trauma all individuals have experienced through COVID-19, I think it's really imperative that we kindly ask our government to really just like try some new strategies, or try to look at different outlooks on possibilities for what can be done about this. Because we're mentioning the mental health being a very real experiences in COVID-19. And I mean, we're looking at all the scapegoating that's going on right now, right? Where individuals are using their pain and lashing it out at others, whether this can be anti-maskers to people who are very much pushing masking to the point where if someone doesn't wear a mask, they will do anything in their power to, bash them or say they're the worst, or whether it's, racial scapegoating. And, recently in Vancouver, there's been a huge harm to the Asian community where individuals are fueling their hate to this community. And, obviously I can't definitively say that it's because of the length and duration of COVID-19 and the impact it had, but I don't think I would be pushing my explanation by saying that this had at least a significant role in this increase of stress, pain, and throwing of pain. And this is by no means saying that I think it's okay to do that. I mean, the whole show is debate and trying to figure out what's right in this world through conversation.
right.
But I think, as much as an individual has to take responsibility for their action at a systemic level, which is what we were talking about in the beginning of our conversation, a lot of those roots are there. And if there are outdated roots that fuel, scapegoating or pain, throwing your pain onto another individual, an individual at a large scale sense has to take some responsibility, but so does the individuals who make that systemic role. Not sure if you had any comments on that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to, again, the fact that we're living in a time where there is a lot of contradiction. Our systems are contradictory. Our governance is contradictory. The way we are, even our systems of electing our leaders are contradictory. And I get it. Everyone is tired. Everyone is, but we cannot then turn to each other, and because we are all in this together.
We're all into this together, exactly.
So we cannot turn to each other and start throwing blame, because that's when we actually lose it. And COVID-19, if it was an alien trying to take us out, it would have won, because if we are separated, if my hurt is separated from another person's, then I'm going to see my hurt as more painful than what the other person is going through. So we have to remember that at the end of the day, we are all in this together. And again, that's a good, because when we diagnose what is actually happening, it helps us understand.
Absolutely.
Because I know individuals are going insane. They're like, what's happening? What, we don't even know what to do.
That's
so
the
what
thing,
we
right?
can do is, one, to call out some of these things where we see them, but it also starts with us as, reaching out to one another, because we don't know how long this thing will go. We don't know what else is in store. But
Absolutely.
again, I will emphasize this, that all this scapegoating happens because we see ourselves as more deserving of life as others, right? And it's been ongoing because our systems also promote that.
Right.
Our economic systems promote that the more money I have, the more life I deserve. But that shouldn't be the case, right?
For sure.
So we need to center down on, again, rebuilding systems that emphasize community, that emphasize health. Because when people, the diagnosis you just made, Dr. D, you're right, that when people are lost at what to do, they start to turn to each other. The scapegoating that you're talking about. So we kind of need to, maybe COVID-19 might help us heal.
For sure.
If we look at it as an opportunity. These things that we've built for all this time have not worked. Our social systems are failing. Our community, the dynamics are failing. How can we rebuild, right? So
absolutely.
For me, the encouragement to individuals is reach out. There's still life after COVID. The fact that you're even still alive is good enough to reach out to another person. And then trust me that we also have to look at history, that people have survived worse than this. People have survived worse than this, and they still kept united.
This too shall pass.
So
absolutely.
We have to look at history to teach us that we can survive this, and also look at the future to realize that, we need to build better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is going to be the final note I have just before we go on to closing. Man, this was a really nice chat, actually. I really enjoyed this, Joseph. Thanks for coming on. And we'll do that official thank you and outro after all of this finishes. But I just wanted to mention, we're talking a little bit earlier about, the scapegoating individuals have when they're dealing with times of hardship. And I think it's important for all sides to just have compassion. And as Joseph very eloquently mentioned, that we need to understand what's happening. Because, I think everyone feels the pain. Everyone feels the hardship. Everyone feels immense trauma, the COVID-19 and the resulting resulting everything that's happened through this time. But we need to really have compassion for one another, whether one person aligns with your political views or your anything. Just have compassion to really reach out and understand, because we're talking on previous episodes of our show where social media shows one particular narrative that fits your algorithm, and that keeps your brain a little bit biased. And I won't go into all the nuances on this show. I believe we talked about it a little bit on our episode with Mihalis, so check out that one if you're interested. But have that compassion and have these conversations with your friends, with your family. Talk about it. Give your thoughts out to the world, because you may have that one experience that can change the system at large. And I'm hoping that my conversation with Joseph today and the insights he brought to our program and to you has the ability to inspire you to make those individual changes, which can have a grassroots approach to the future. Mm-hmm. And one last note before we ask for Joseph's shout outs and also his one message to the audience is kind of rewinding a little bit, but makes time to have some sort of social interaction with your friends, whether it's through the text medium, whether it's anonymously through Reddit, whether it is a phone call, and make it a weekly occurrence. Because when we had Dr. John Rady here, Harvard medical professor and professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, in his book, he actually mentions this. You need to make a dedicated time to see these people. It's so vital for our health. When we do not have this sense of community, when we're isolated, our mental health deteriorates. We need it, guys. And I need every one of you listening to this to make a dedicated time to spend with friends, to spend with family. And this doesn't need to be in person. It can be over the phone. It can be on Zoom. It can be playing a game. It can be playing a board game, a virtual board game. You catch my drift. But take care of your health. Take care of you. Be compassionate. And with that said, Joseph, I would like to formally thank you for being on our program. And I'd like to ask you, what are your shout outs? Where can people find you? And yeah, feel free to just shout out anything you like, sir.
Thank you, bro. I mean, you're a good friend. I really appreciate you in particular. Thank you for inviting me and for making time to do this. I know a lot of people are starting to listen to podcasts. A lot of people are turning to a lot of different things to get their hope going. So thank you, man, for this. I was excited to come on here today. I look forward to listening to other podcasters you bring onto this program. Well, how do you reach me? I'm on Instagram. I'm kind of a very
academic guy.
No, really academic.
He's kind of a big deal, guys. You can't reach him. He's too cool for you.
No, I am. What's the word? I'm a private person.
Low key.
I like low key.
Yep.
But I also love people. My work, everything about me is about people. So if you happen to get on my Instagram or Facebook or wherever it is, shoot me a message. I'll be very happy to reply. And I love people. But this
what's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Kwesi Joe. Kwesi Joe. You can find me on Instagram. If you look me up on Facebook, you'll find me. Yeah, I love people. And I'm always willing to listen. And I think that's the most we can do for each other.
Absolutely.
That I would say as I close, and that listen more. Listen more, and I would say get that hope on. Don't give up. Don't give up. Let the pandemic not shut your hopes down, because there's still hope. There's still far more life to live. Yeah,
absolutely. And what is your one message to the audience? Was it hope? Or is there something different that you'd like to say? It doesn't have to be necessarily from our conversation that we just had. Anything you'd like to say. You want to tell people to get macaroni cheese? Go for it.
Well, to individuals, I would say, if you like bananas, eat more bananas.
Bananas
if you
are
like
key.
bananas, eat more bananas.
Should
But
that be the
I would
preview?
say,
Should that be the preview? If
Yeah,
you like more bananas, eat more bananas. Watch our episode with Joseph.
but I would say there's a lot more we can be grateful for. I like nature. I like going out. I love birds. They teach me so much about life that they let seasons come and go. So this is just a season, and as I always look at birds, they allow seasons to come and go. So as a bird, just fly around, let this season pass, and another season will come. The summer will be here, and the fall will come, the spring will come, but just keep flying.
Fly with the wind, young birdie. Love it. Awesome, Joseph. Well, thank you again. Thank you for your insights. Loved having you on the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. And we're going to hit our outro. But before we do, I just want to take the time to thank the listeners and the viewers of this podcast. We went in deep with Joseph. We talked about compassion. We talked about health systems at large. We talked about possible ways that Canada and really the world could take to change some of the outcomes that we are experiencing today. And we also talked about why we should really have compassion for one another, make time for friends and family, and change our world through our own actions. So thank you again for listening to our episode. We hope you catch us on another one, and share us with a friend or two if you enjoyed it. With that said, we're going to hit our outro, and we'll check you on the next one. Hey everyone, I'm back after another amazing episode with another amazing guest. We hope we added value into your life so you could take the tips from this episode and fuel your process forward. If you enjoyed our episode today and think other friends or family members may also appreciate the lessons that our podcast brings, be sure to share us with them. Subscribe and rate our show so we know how we did. And always remember, trust the process.